Hey, and welcome to another educational session on What We Do Wednesdays. Today I'm going to just quickly show you and talk to you about the functional lines. They are again lines that we don't necessarily treat in isolation because they pretty much cover the same kind of lines and travel into the same attachment points as the superficial back line, your superficial front line, your spiral line, and your arm lines. However, these lines in particular don't get involved so much in stabilization as like the superficial back and front line and the lateral lines do. So these lines are more engaged in activities, okay? So any kind of sport or even day-to-day stuff, that's when we're talking about the functional lines. So I'm just going to show you a quick photo or a quick picture so you can see where they run and where they connect to. Alrighty, so these are the functional lines here. There's 3 of them. As I said before, you've got your back functional line, your front functional line, and your ipsilateral functional line as well. So with your back line, as you can see, it kind of goes just below the knee into the lower leg here. Runs through the hamstrings, so to speak, through the back of your legs, also a little bit on the sides, through your glutes, and then into your big latissimus dorsi complex, going into the arms, going into your arm lines there. The functional front line, inside of the legs here, going through the torso, through the chest, into the arm lines again, so covering arm lines as well as superficial front line. And you've got your ipsilateral functional line here, kind of really just covering your lateral lines on the side here through the ribcage, however more so through the superficial front line on the legs, okay? And also again kind of attaches under the knee to the lower leg. Beautiful. So what we see mainly with our functional lines, as I said, is through movement, through activity. And it often is where one side is getting stabilized while the other side needs to be doing some kind of movement. So you often see how obviously you've got, say, the functional front line attached through the torso into the arms. So big extension before we go into a throw, for example, would be something that the functional line is involved in. Same again if you're going for like a spear throw. Even when you're like kayaking, for example, the hips are stabilized while the upper body still needs to be doing some rotational work here. So that's where your functional lines come into play as well, back as well as front obviously on this one, as well as the lateral again, because we're not trying to bend too much through the waist. But as I said, like the functional lines are not something that is treated or looked at in an isolation way, because they are so covering the same areas as our previously mentioned lines, and even though they are more involved in activity rather than stabilizing stuff on its own, which is more what the other lines are doing, they can't really be separated. No of the lines can be separated from each other. They're all interconnected. However, you know, if something is not right with your throw, for example, you won't be able to fix that just looking at the line of the functional line. You have to kind of dig a bit deeper and dig around, and obviously ankles or lower leg compartment into feet is always something that should be looked at, and not just from here up to here. So that's pretty much it about the functional lines. There is a few movements. I know Pilates kind of goes into some stuff when it comes to functional lines a bit more, but for our purpose here, we'll leave it just at that kind of informational, educational side of things today. And we've got one more line to go, which is the deep front line. And this one is a bit of a tough one because you can't actually access that through just, you know, going in from the outside, because obviously it's deep inside. So we'll talk about that next week. See you then.